If you have an app idea and it's still living in notes, you're not early, you're stuck. Because the new founder trap is not a lack of code, it's fake momentum. Vibe coding gets you a pretty good prototype fast, and then the last 30% hits like a brick wall. Architecture, requirements, integration, security, the stuff that makes you want to delete the repo and move to the cabin. Ehsan built Codalio to be the between a CTO and a technical lead layer. You prompt in plain English, Codalio interviews you back, pulls the idea out of your head, and turns it into real requirements and technical scope. Then it generates a full app, front end, back end, around 80 to 90% of the build. And this is a use case founders are sleeping on. Use it to build a real internal tool in a weekend. Think ops dashboard, customer intake workflow, distribution center digitization, or a data ingestion pipeline from drones or robots. For real. Not a demo, a viable product that can actually scale. So think about it. Are you delaying your product because the idea needs more time or because you're afraid of finding out it's real? Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. This interview is for founders who want speed without building a fragile spaghetti monster. You will learn how to avoid the 70% wall, how to scope like a real CTO, and how to ship something that does not collapse the moment users show up. And if you want an unfair founder advantage, grab the newsletter at aiforfounders.co. It's bite-sized playbooks, spicy tools, and the kind of clarity that makes shipping feel inevitable. Join, and your future you will stop hate scrolling and start building. That's the newsletter at aiforfounders.co. And if this has happened to you, please leave a review on the podcast like you're tipping your future self. Founders, you do not have a lead problem. You have a trust problem. Ads are expensive, cold outreach is a knife fight, social posts disappear in 6 minutes. Kitcaster fixes that by booking you as the guest on the exact podcast your customers already trust. You show up, tell the story, teach the lesson, drop the proof. Then the audience goes, oh, this person actually knows what they're doing. We have helped founders drive 7 figures in revenue from podcast appearances. We have seen founders raise serious capital after the right interview hit the right investor at the right time. Because podcasts are the last place on the internet where people still listen like humans. So here's how it works. We dial in your positioning, your talking points, and your founder narrative. We pitch you to shows that match your ICP. We handle booking logistics and prep so you walk in sounding like the main character, not a random LinkedIn post with legs. If you're building something real and you're ready to be known for it, Kitcaster is the shortcut. That's kitcaster.com by Moburst. Ehsan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm really excited to talk about your tool, Codalio. So give us the 30,000 foot view of your tool and the company.
Absolutely. So Codalio is an AI, generative AI augmented platform that allows you to do both product and software development a lot faster, more quicker. And it simply allows you to build enterprise and scalable full applications 80% faster and more cost effective.
Incredible. Would it be safe to say it's a vibe coding platform?
Well, it is not. I think there's a big differentiation between us and what vibe coding in general means. I think from our perspective, vibe coding allows you to prototype things a lot more quicker. And but it doesn't give you the sort of, the whole experience of building full scalable enterprise grade or, let's say good quality applications. Vibe coding is great in just to start with a simple prompt and give you a good UI very quickly, but it's not designed to be the tool to be used to build scalable applications.
100%. Vibe coding is probably the favorite conversation of this podcast, largely because you have all these new people that have enthusiasm and ideas, and they're bringing their ideas to Bolt, to Replit, to Lovable. If they're a little bit more advanced, they're getting into Claude, they're doing Cursor, so kind of how should we think about Codalio in this kind of ecosystem? Is this kind of a graduating platform? Like you've kind of tinkered around with a couple things, but you're like, you know what? It's actually time to bring this to kind of a retail ready type platform. Is that a good place to kind of describe where you kind of fit in the market?
That is good description of where we land in this market in this spectrum of different services. But if I could just give you maybe our own version of how we categorize the whole industry and the other tools in the AI and coding space,
I love
maybe
that.
that gives you a better perspective into what Codalio is. So we have categorized these AI coding or AI encoding tools into three main big buckets. One of them, we call them the generalist code assistant tools, like the Copilot, Cursor, and the other tools that they plug into your IDE. The developers can prompt them, and then they generate some code for you. They're adding more layers into it. They're kind of adding more planning features into it, and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, those tools are designed to help the developers to build code or write code a lot faster. They're generalists, they are agnostic to the tech stack that you use. And so they're designed to be as part of a toolbox for every type of developer out there. Then it comes a second category, the prototyping tools, the Lovable, V0, and Bolt, and the other ones that they are great in kind of get you from prompt to a good UI that you can start imagining and kind of bringing some of your ideas to life. You can click through it. You can kind of get a sense of the workflow. And again, for the most part, they do a good job building front end for the applications. And it is designed to be prompted by almost anybody and you can just simply prompt them in plain English. So whether you are just a hobbyist or a developer or a product manager that you want to quickly prototype something, they actually do a fantastic job. And the third category are the ones that we're actually calling them in our own words, saying that they are lifecycle agents or lifecycle agentic flows, like Devin of the world or the Cloud Code. That again, they're essentially designed to augment engineering teams. And they basically accelerate the whole existing workflow of writing code, committing to the Git repos, getting the code reviews, maybe debug, and so on and so on. And so they kind of have an overarching focus on the entire software development lifecycle. Again, designed to be used by software developers and engineers. So where we come is that we are kind of looking at it as an evolutionary step into all of this, that we do have a combination of all. Again, we're not targeting all of them, obviously. That's the right thing to do for any startup to just be able to just go after everybody in that sense. But we're essentially saying that we wanted to have a closed loop, tightly integrated loop to build fully functional applications. And the first and the primary ICP for us are the founders, anybody that wants to build a new application, and that they can simply just prompt in English, get all of the details sorted out from the scope, requirements, even understanding the ICP and the type of users that they're going to bring on board. And then it kind of generates from there all the technical details, the technical scope. And then we go through a process to generate both the front and the back end, but obviously not entirely. There's always a last mile that we're fully aware of that we want to make sure that the developers can actually bet on. But we actually get you to a good chunk of the code on the front, on the back end. So about 80 to 90%.
Incredible. So is this in sense replacing CTO, for example?
I think that is a very good way of characterizing it. We think it's somewhere between CTOs and the tech leads. Because not every CTO is hands-on, dealing with the day-to-day development lifecycle.
You bet. You bet. But at least to spin up ideas, get them all the way there, and then using. So then what do you recommend for kind of completing the last mile, really tying a bow on it and getting it ready to ship to market?
At the end of the day, for any developer to be able to really execute on the plan that is aligned with the product, they need to have all these specific tasks and requirements defined and provided to them. Yeah. So once you generate all of the scope and requirements early on, and then we generate, again, some good amount of front end and the back end, and we put it on the Git repo. And then we do have these, let's call them helpers that are fed to the LLMs, vanilla LLMs or any coding, agent. Then from that point on, the developers not only have the clear view of and understanding of what exactly they should be working on, but they also have the proper guidance and assistance with the specialized agents that they can simply not only understand the existing code, but also just start building that last mile with the proper guidance and assistance. And the way that we do it is that we properly manage the context in that sense, which means that they will have all of the everything that they need from from the traditional sense from their tech leads or CTOs.
I love it. So the last mile is going to be a mix of agentic support, and then there's kind of some human checks on the backside as well.
That is correct.
Cool. And then what about collaborating? So like if I'm going to go to Codalio, I've got an idea, I just lob it out there. I'm going to have an exchange, and basically Codalio is going to interview me, kind of refine the idea, make sure it knows exactly what to expect, maybe probably predict some of the things that I don't know. My biggest problem right now, coming from a design standpoint and a RevOps standpoint and going into some of these coding apps, is I don't know what I don't know. So I really do rely on Codalio, for example, to be like, hey, we know what he wants to do. He's going to need all these things as well. So through that exchange, it's going to basically put together all the requirements for the application, and then it's going to build. Now, if I'm in this process and I got a buddy and he's in Toronto with you, and I'm here in Colorado, I'm like, hey, I want to bring in my buddy. How do we collaborate with the kind of design of these MVPs? What's up, everybody? Let me hit you with some math that will blow your mind. A wealth manager using WarmStart.ai grew their assets under management by 8.5 million in 3 months. Their monthly fee, $500. That's a 1,700% return on investment in 3 months. And I get it, another AI tool, another monthly subscription. But here's what makes WarmStart different. It's not trying to find you new people to bug, it's helping you reconnect with people who already know you. As a founder, your biggest asset isn't your product or your website, it's your relationships. But most of us are terrible at nurturing them systematically. WarmStart connects your email, identifies warm contacts, and helps you craft personalized outreach that doesn't sound like a robot wrote it. The best part, you review every message before it goes out. No automation without permission. If you're ready to stop leaving money in your inbox, try WarmStart.ai. Use code AIFF for $50 off your first month, because the ROI on your existing relationships is probably better than any investment you'll make this year. That's WarmStart.ai and use code AIFF. This episode is brought to you by Moburst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. Moburst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product-market fit or ready to accelerate growth, Moburst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At Moburst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, Moburst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category defining together.
So I have to say, you had a very great way of, providing an overview. Appreciate that. That makes my job a lot easier to explain. But, to your point, when you prompt in English and you're guided throughout the process and you figure out what, the other things that you don't know. And once all of those, let's call them artifacts or the detail requirements are generated, you at that point are able to invite, anybody from your team or the external teams to the flow. And they're going to be able to see all of those details in the flow. And then obviously they can continue editing or prompting to make sure that they get it to the finish line. From that sense, we also have the versioning feature that allows the collaborators to essentially first maybe freeze the scope on a version and then start maybe continue prompting to iterate and define the next iteration of the version on that. So that makes it a lot easier for the collaborators to not only collaborate with each other and edit and update, but also through the versioning, create a clear understanding of how they want to iterate again on the future iterations, again, in a more collaborative way.
Awesome, man. What a cool tool. Now, one of my favorite things is getting inspiration. So here in Denver, we have we call it an AI clubhouse. It's ID 345 here in Denver. And basically on a biweekly basis, we get together and demo products. And I love it because it's almost like with AI, it's a blank palette. Sometimes you need somebody to give you kind of paint by numbers. So what are some great products that you've seen developed with Codalio? And what are some tools you'd like to see developed with Codalio?
Of course. Well, again, one of the things that we've always focused on is to make sure that we enable our customers to build things that are, even from the day first, are scalable. Because the term MVP, and again, we call ourselves as part of a fourth category, MVP builders. You're essentially doing a minimal viable product. It's not a prototype that you want to still experiment the ideas with. We want to make sure what we generate is a viable product. So in our examples, we've seen companies that wanted to not only ingest some massive amount of data from, let's say, robotics or a drone, pull them into the application, pull them into the software, properly put them into the proper data pipelines, pre-process and post-process using AI or whatever may be the case. And then, although the requirements started to grow almost in this case, those requirements started to grow very quickly after the first iteration. They were able to still just continue on the same trajectory or the same pathways to basically add more bells and whistles, update the architecture, and then add more capabilities to it. So the best examples we've seen, distribution centers wanted to digitize the whole process and wanted to experiment maybe for just some time and then start scaling from that point on, understanding where they can start building more efficiency into the process. Robotic companies, drone companies that wanted to ingest massive amount of data, react on it properly, and so on and so on. What I would like to see, hopefully in the future, is that we can hopefully build ways that we can automatically use MCPs rather than just using APIs to do the manual integration. And how we do this effectively, again, a lot of it is yet to be seen, yet to be figured out. But I would like to see that people come in from their own ideas in ways that we can simply connect to many different types of solutions that makes them better without having to really think about building them and without having to think about how to integrate with those. because that's the way of the future, the way I see it. You want to move a lot faster in this time and day. And you just want to connect to a slew of different possibilities that other people are working on. And you can bring something into existence that, although it may sound simple, but does obviously provide some impactful outcome.
Yeah. So cool. Now, these tools as a category seem to be about 12 months old. So talk about the inception of Codalio. Did you finance or did you raise a round of financing to basically to launch?
So the original idea and the original code that we started with actually came about 5 years ago. So myself and my ex-co-founders at a company called New Binary, which was a fractional CTO service company, where we were providing some very senior CTOs to many earlier stage and later stage companies that were dealing with the whole exercise of building complicated solutions. And we figured out a way very much early on that the biggest challenge for us to get started was to simply bring those ideas or extract those ideas from the minds of the founders. And so in that process, we started, coming with our own ways to interview our customers better, to understand the business objective first. Again, the job of a CTO back in the day for us was to make sure that we not only understand the business objects, but also we can properly tie them to the technical requirements. So we started with that mindset. We built our own processes internally. We had an interesting run. We grew so fast and so quickly. That was a need that we didn't think that existed to that amount, to that significance. And so right there, we obviously realized that we need to enable our customers to move a lot faster. And one of the things that we paid a lot of it, put a lot of emphasis on or paid attention to was the fact that most of the new software had good chunk of them, or let's say 70% of every new software was simply the repeat of the same features that existed before. So for example, if you're building a login system, you're doing absolutely no innovation. A lot of the dev shops, obviously, we didn't consider ourselves as a software development company, but a lot of the software development companies, dev shops, outsourcing companies, or a lot of the senior engineers, they created their own boilerplates that basically meant that they had all of these modules or standard modules that they were weaving together to produce a new product. We decided early on, 5-6 years ago, to create an abstraction layer on top of the Ruby on Rails, tech stack that simply generated all of those commodity components automatically instead of trying to bring in those components together and try to stitch them together. So we built that. We started thinking about how we can simply, elicit or extract those requirements and then push it through our own algorithms, processes, code, and then down to our framework. And so at some point around 2 years ago, we realized we're onto something very interesting because we could actually reduce the time and the cost of the development significantly for our customers. So we then basically said, let's just spin this off. We spun it off as a separate company. And about just a few months ago, we raised a pre-seed capital. And then we started ramping up, and we are in our second alpha, and soon we are going to be going out with our major beta release in about a couple of months, and hopefully, expect good amount of adoption by the market.
Yeah, incredible, and congratulations. How much have you raised so far?
In Canadian dollars, that's about $900,000, to be exact, $860,000. And from angels, from some local government entities, they actually do equity investment, and we do have some more that we expect to land very soon, and hopefully that gives us enough, horsepower to push this faster, quicker, and better.
Love it. Wait till this audience gets a hold of this. They're there's nothing more fun than experimenting with tools like this, especially at the level that you're designing for. It sounds like a lot of applications internally that will be like very useful for a lot of different kind of folks. But then there's the tinkers and the dabblers. I love that this is also an offshoot of your other company, because that's like kind of exactly what you could use this for, right? Like your primary company that you're working on, but you're looking for new projects. Codalio is a place where you can go experiment with it. Now, I want to talk a little bit further differentiation, because I think you like spelled out kind of your position in the market very clearly. There's going to be folks like me that just stumble in talking about vibe coding and this and that, and that's not exactly it. What are some common misconceptions that people might have, and maybe how do you clear those up?
Well, it's very much evident today that a lot of people had this misconception that vibe coding basically means that you get a deployable, ready to go, ready to production applications, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
And so, yes, vibe coding allows you to really bring your vision into something that you can play around with very quickly. But then if you're not thinking about your requirements early on, and you're not really figuring out all of the details that come right after the first prototype is produced, you are starting to basically seeing some sort of a wall that you cannot bypass that easily. There are so many articles coming out that talk about the 70% problem, which basically means that you get to the 70% of your, conceptualized code, but then the last 30% is so difficult to build that you have to rethink about the entire UI, the workflow, the architecture, the business logic, the integrations, and so on and so on and so on. So I think we have to give the vibe coding tools the credit to really just allow people to envision things and bring them into something that they can click and play around with. That actually solves one of the biggest, I guess, aspects of the scoping a project. But then you fall short very quickly after, having the first prototype ready for you.
Yeah, it's so true. And, I was talking to my buddy Danny in a previous episode this week, and we were talking about like, if you're using vibe coding broadly, like the importance of momentum, and I think particularly there's a low barrier of entry for a lot of people with ideas to start to materialize those ideas. And you're exactly right. If it's 70% or 80%, or maybe you can get 99% of the idea out in 10 minutes. But that last 1% is going to make you wish you were dead, So that's really where you're going to need a different scale of product to kind of help you through. As far as like providing the extra human in the loop, how involved is your team actually like in deploying projects, getting it past that last mile? And then also kind of talk about your team. How many of the folks are on the team?
We are about 6 people full time, but I do have some great advisors, and in total with our interns, we're about 13 people today.
Amazing. That's fantastic. You're HQ'd in Toronto. Sorry to interrupt.
In Toronto, mostly in Northern Ontario, in a city called Sudbury, where we received some good amount of support from the economic development and the local government there. But yes, we have to be closer to some extent to what happens in the Toronto core, because of all the great things that are happening within the startup ecosystem, incubators and accelerators, and the whole scene of the early stage VCs and the funders. So we have to maintain some proximity to that. But I wanted to go back, if you don't mind,
please,
to the whole notion of the whole concept of the misconception about the other tools. One of the things that was relevant to that conversation is that obviously, a lot of people do the prototype, they unplug from the level one, they bolt up the platforms, and they go into their own preferred coding tool like Cursor or the other ones. And they simply continue the prompting and hoping to get, some, strong or high quality code out of those platforms for the on top of what they already produce in those tools. The challenge is, if you are prompting those tools, you need to have a good understanding of the context, of the architecture of the code, the requirements, the business requirements, and so on and so on. So, yes, it is true that you can indeed, as a founder, as a non-technical or a non-developer founder, to prompt those other tools with plain English and produce some code. But if you do not have a good understanding of the software architecture, about the type of, or the best practices in coding, or even the existing, even thin layer of the code that you generated in your prototyping tool. If you do not have a good understanding of that, prompting those tools is not going to get you that much, far ahead.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that, another misconception in the space that we see out there. Just wanted to put it out there.
No, I appreciate that. I'm interested about Toronto too. I know about Denver's kind of AI community and startup communities very strong. Austin, of course, San Francisco, New York's got a great community. Learning a lot about Zurich and their kind of AI community. Talk to me a little bit about the startups and companies coming out of Toronto right now.
Well, first of all, I think by numbers, Toronto and Southern Ontario ecosystem, so Toronto Waterloo corridor is considered to be the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. Again, I haven't checked the numbers, but apparently San Francisco obviously is still number one. Then you have the Boston ecosystem, and then based on the numbers that I've been tracking for the past few years, Toronto Waterloo corridor has become the number 3. It is said that at any given time, you're looking at about 60 to 80,000 active startups, tech startups. And they are mostly incubated at the university-linked incubators. So the ones that are at the campus or at around the campus that do have the close proximity and collaboration with engineering schools, with let's call it today, with any type of, with any of the departments at the university settings. And then there are some really big success stories that led to creation of some industry-specific ecosystems in the city that are notable. One of them is fintech, because of the Ethereum and the fact that we in Canada have some of the largest banks in the world. The second one is related to the medical device and life sciences, and that's mostly attributed to the fact that we do have some great universities, University of Toronto, in the city that actually produces a lot of great IP and intellectual property around those. And then AI has always been big. University of Toronto is considered to be the birthplace of AI in general, with Jeff Hinton just starting his research for the most part in Toronto. And then he was the contributor to the TensorFlow at Google, that is the underlying technology to the Google Translate that later became, I guess, the foundation to a lot of the LLMs.
One thing, and I mentioned that because I read on LinkedIn that you'd been a little bit, I would say, vocal about Canada's innovation commercialization problem. What did you mean by that?
So, Canada as a country, as a nation, is injecting over $53 billion into R&D at the university settings, colleges, universities, hospitals, and also funding some business innovation through many different programs. I think 40, if I'm not mistaken, about $40 billion of that goes into the research institutions directly. So university colleges and universities. And we do have a very small share of commercialization of those generated, IP coming out of those programs. The number is very low. And when you compare it to some of the best universities in the United States, MIT, Stanford, I think the collective of what happens in Canada today, maybe close to one of the universities, one of the top universities in the United States. So that is a big blow to the investments of our tax dollars as Canadian citizens. And so I think if in this new world that you need to shorten the cycle of innovation, it is important to not only invest in deeper tech or high tech type of plays, and because and obviously accelerate that process, that commercialization process by any means that you can. And the reason that maybe the biggest reason of it is that just like the why is democratizing the whole software development, there isn't much of an intellectual property in many of the solutions, traditional type of solutions out there. So if you decided to build a new, let's say, CRM, you could actually do something very decent in about a day or maybe maximum in about a week. So when that happens, your barrier, your your edge, your competitive edge cannot be only building a software tool as it used to be. It should be around, some deeper intellectual property play. And that becomes extremely important for a nation like Canada that brings in good amount of talent from around the world, produces great talent and great quality talent locally, and invest massively into R&D, but they're not properly capitalizing on that.
Sounds fair enough. All right, we're ready to go into the quantum round. Are you ready for this?
Absolutely.
All right. You think the Raptors are going to beat the Pistons this year?
I honestly don't know.
You a basketball guy?
I am more of a soccer guy because I was not born here, and but grew up. I learned to play soccer, and I'm more of a soccer guy.
Where were you born?
I was born in Iran.
In where?
In Iran.
Iran.
Or Iran.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got some pretty good soccer teams down there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's what World Cup is next year, right?
Yes.
Cool. Well, and I don't blame you. You end up in Toronto. They give you the Raptors. You can't. It's not the right team. It's like you want to be a basketball fan. You come to Denver. I'll take you to Nuggets game. We'll do it properly. Amazing. Okay. Let's go back to business ideas again, because it sounds like you're a business idea guy, and you're kind of at the fulcrum of other people's business ideas. The audience of this program loves business ideas. Now, I think the kind of the benchmark for a successful idea is a quick ramp up to that $1 million run rate. So if you had an idea for another business, or maybe you have an idea that could quickly ramp to $1 million annual run rate, what's that business idea?
You put me on the spot.
Think of something fast.
Well, I think one of the smartest things I've seen in the retail space is the way that Costco operates. If you pay close attention, I think they have developed maybe some of the smartest algorithms to pick what people need at the right time, and they price it very accurately. And so they have created this massive customer confidence that when you go to Costco and you buy something, you actually get the best deal. In this time and day, we do have access to a lot of public data on customer reviews. We do have access to a lot of the specifications of, let's say, laptops. Even as an engineer, even as a computer scientist, as an engineer, it's not easy for me to do a quick comparative analysis on laptop one versus laptop two to say, how much of a performance boost I get from this CPU versus the other CPU. So if anybody could be inspired by what Costco has done with all of the publicly available data, they could actually run an engine that you could potentially run on your browser as an extension. That when you're looking at the product, you gain good amount of confidence that you are actually getting a good deal or not. And so
Great. That's a good deal. I love that. Yeah. I mean, Costco, and a big part of AI, the future of AI, where I'm most interested is in its predictive capabilities. And this kind of ties right into that, based on your patterns, based on, your spending behavior, or even also just based on kind of the cultural milieu. Because I mean, Costco, I went in there like 6 weeks ago with my wife because I'm like, you know what? I need 24 frozen burritos, So of course I'm going to Costco. But on the way to get the frozen burritos, I was like, oh man, they got a dry sauna for like $2,000. And so I'm like, sweetheart, I'm pulling the trigger. We could put this in the garage. She's like, no, you can't buy a sauna right now. But I was like, I mean, I was one good argument away from buying a sauna when I went in for burritos. So like they definitely understand their customers. And of course, I am the consumer, American man. They know exactly what I want. I'm like, oh, what's this? A electric griddle? Oh, I do want electric griddle. So I think that is a brilliant product. I wonder how you would find it would be data based on like the user's browser habits, kind of. Is that what you're thinking?
that, and also the publicly available data, because we are now, consumers are just bombarded with the amount of information and the ads that we get. But when you, for example, click on an ad and you land, let's say, on Best Buy website, how do you know what you're actually getting is the absolute best deal you can find in the market? So that's one thing. But to your point, to simply pull you back into a process, yes, you look at the historical patterns. You can over time understand the personality and the needs and the wants of the user, and then you can do wonders.
Yeah.
And understanding the timing, understanding when your son is getting closer to a graduation party and so on. So that actually gives you a lot of personalization experience. But I think the bigger challenge that this type of a solution can solve is the fact that, as a consumer today, you are not sure if you're actually getting the best deal. You can be buying things on sale, but is that really the best deal that you can find in the market or not? That's a big question for a lot of the consumers today.
Love it. Cool. So you just recently closed seed round. Congratulations. That's amazing. You'll be going for larger rounds soon. I'm an investor myself, and you make a very strong case, a very bullish case for these kind of tools. But as an investor, what should I be cautious about when I'm thinking about AI infrastructure tools?
Well, I think we can always be excited about the amazing things AI can do, but understanding the next wave of innovation and how it translates back into solving real problems is extremely important, because excitement is one thing, but at the end of the day, technology needs to solve humans' problems. And the challenge today is that there are so many exciting, flashy tools out there that get you excited. But a lot of them can actually become, very quickly become irrelevant because one, the market is moving so fast. A lot of the bigger players do have great plans that they can think of, and they can always look at the usage patterns and be even more creative than you are. Second thing is that a lot of the excitement that we get may not actually solve a real problem in a real business settings. Like, for example, you can actually upload a document, a legal document, and get some high level understanding or better understanding of that legal document from the AI. But is it really something that can over time be compliant and you get some solid feedback from it or not? Those are the questions. I do understand that what I'm telling you is a simple example of it, but you can extrapolate from that and really understand that no matter how effective the AI tools can be, but they may never, a lot of the use cases that we're thinking about today, they may never, or they may not that easily land into environments where the adoption can actually happen effectively. So those are the things. I think it's the second big trend that we should be cautious about is that how the big LLM models are evolving and how easy it is for them to turn on a feature that provides, some value to the client. So, for example, the challenge to a lot of the prototyping tools is that a lot of what they do can be done by the big LLMs, the OpenAI, the ChatGPT, and Gemini from Google, and so on and so on. And so, for example, I think just recently, OpenAI launched these different versions or this, slimmed down versions of Photoshop that once you actually generate your prototype or UI, you can use the drag and drop features of the Photoshop that is just plugged right into your workflow. So if you're not continuing on the same trajectory or go deeper into the user workflow, you can essentially become irrelevant very quickly by the big LLM providers.
Yeah. Basically, it's make sure you got a customer. I mean, I had a great conversation with a buddy of mine's father. He's, 76 years old. He's worked 3 generations, 70 years in a flooring store. And we're just throwing around AI stuff. He was curious about it. So we're talking about it. And he's like, I don't know about that, but I know about cash flow. And I was like, hey man, actually that sensibility goes a long ways in building any kind of tools, So like making sure that you've got a customer, making sure you can cash flow a business as an investor, that might be like the brass tacks. Hey, this technology seems amazing, but what's the protection? What's the moat you're building around that Gemini can't just scoop up in 1 second with one update?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Is there a CEO or entrepreneur you follow closely?
Well, I usually learn a lot from Bill Gates. Warren Buffett usually comes up with some very interesting perspective, although I don't necessarily agree with him on the AI hype. I don't think it's a pure hype. There are a lot of great things that are happening in AI. And, obviously, just like everybody else, I'm following Elon Musk as well. I like the fact that he's so brave, doing many things all at the same time and just pushing the boundaries so much. But I don't know, it's very hard to be inspired by him because you kind of feel that he's just like a superhuman.
Maybe a villain. Yeah, maybe both.
Maybe both.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Just a couple more questions here. This has been so fun.
Thanks.
So the inception for Codalio was like 5 years ago. What are maybe some conceptions about startups that have changed since then, or that you like to update, that you have updated?
Worse. I think one of the biggest patterns that I'm seeing, and it's just um, sometimes mind-boggling, is the fact that the whole PPC and growing by spending on ads type of a situation is seems to be gone. You can't win your way out to growth that easily by just paying to Google and the Meta. They just eat up your entire margin, and it's just very hard to, you know, cut through the noise, get the attention of your audience. So a lot of the new companies are learning or coming up with creative ways to use social media in many different ways and shape, to just simply encourage user adoption. Some of them are learning or coming up with creative ways to flood social media in a very short span of time to just get the first 100,000 clients or prompters very quickly. I think that's very interesting. The other thing is that um, the whole VC model that, building many hyper scalable companies seems to be impacted by this. And so raising capital has become extremely difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs with traditional way of thinking. And I have to say, people do realize the fact that they need to move to market a lot faster. So traditional, or maybe previously, maybe up until about a year or 2 years ago, people were spending maybe about a year, up to about 2 years, to really get to their product from the inception to the product market fit. So it would take them that long to get to the market. In today's world, you cannot afford that. Yes, we talked about the fact that we started the whole vision about 5 years ago. But the moment we said we want to get into the market, we knew we didn't have much of a time. So I am actually getting into the market within about the year since we started to publicly talk about it. And we do realize the fact that this is going to be an interesting time for us. That, if you don't learn from those models, you may just miss the boat.
Couldn't agree with you more. Social media seems to be very strong, but I think you already know, and you're a little bit crafty, that 2026 podcast guest interviews and newsletters, founder-led marketing, that's the best way to go to market now. So I think
I see that as part of a social media, distribution strategy. You need to get to the communities. You need to get to environments where you can have a more intimate conversation, that you can get to the details of what you're trying to do, because you cannot be selling concepts like what we're trying to do in Codalio by just pushing some short videos. The underlying technology of these types of solutions are not that as easy or as simple to be explained that quickly. And the founder story has become extremely important to your point. So that's why the podcast and the way that you folks are actually running your interesting podcasts today is, in my opinion, is extremely important and can be very much beneficial to a lot of other founders.
Well, I'll tell you what, interviewing you is extremely beneficial to me. This has been awesome. Ehsan, I love it. One thing I want to do is give a shout out to the Red Cross, because I know they're special to you. Any particular Red Cross stories?
Well, I think we live in a time and era that we see a lot of, unfortunately, crisis around the world. I am just happy that there is an institution like Red Cross that deals with some of the most difficult situations, where people have to go through war, hardship, and crisis. And even if you can put a dent in one day of their life and make it just a little bit better, I think that's very important. You always become, you often become numb when you look at all of the crazy things that are happening around the world, and when you look at them and when you hear them, see them every day. But I think it's important to just, take a pause at some point and say, maybe we can contribute, maybe we can help out. I think Red Cross has been amazing, doing some amazing work around the globe.
For decades, and I love mentioning charitable organizations just from the pain point of like not really knowing, sometimes like things will come under your nose, charitable organization, and you just can't tell who the charlatans are. But Red Cross, the work that they do is so instrumental for humans across the planet, and just their reputation is absolutely bulletproof. So I'm with you, man. I'm really really glad that there's, just such a unbelievably robust humanitarian organization like the Red Cross. So definitely shout out to those guys. Ehsan, the website is Codalio, Codalio.com. What's the best place for people to connect with you online?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Amazing. I'm sending you a friend ad right now, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you telling your story. Best of luck with the next round of revisions and the next round of raising.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thanks for having me. You made it a lot easier for me. Thank you so much. It was casual, at the same time friendly and technical in some areas. And thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. Hey, founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out aiforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI to grow your startup. Each week, AI for Founders drops a sharp, no-fluff newsletter, dives deep with expert guests on the podcast, and hosts monthly workshops where you can get your hands dirty with the real tools and strategies. Whether you're pre-seed or Series B and beyond, launching something new, or just staying sharp, AI for Founders gives you the edge you need to win in 2025 and beyond. Hit aiforfounders.co to subscribe to the newsletter, tune into the podcast, and grab your spot in the next workshop. And it's all free. Build smarter, move faster, think bolder with AI for Founders. Now back to the show.